Hi, this is Community Wellness with John Jenkins, where we talk about the whole gamut of wellness and well-being on all levels and all facets of life. I can't wait to have you meet our next and upcoming guest, and it'll be a welcome addition to our show to talk about wellness and what happens in the aging process and the things that we might experience in wellness. Hi, welcome to Community Wellness with John Jenkins, and I am excited to have our first guest of this wellness series, and this is Mr. Bob Picone. Bob, good to see you, brother. How you doing?
Very good, very good. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no, thank you, sir, and I'm just really glad it worked out schedule-wise, so we can have you here, and we're actually talking about wellness and the whole wellness as we age and how we age. And just to get some of your thoughts and experiences. And one of the themes we want to touch upon today is the idea of balance, and because that becomes more of a challenge on any age and any level, but also, as we age, balance becomes more and more of a concern. And but say a little bit about you and things you've done, and maybe what things you have witnessed that might be some of the challenges and changes that may happen as people mature.
Well, speaking personally, sometimes I have difficulty understanding or deciphering, is this being caused, whatever loss of balance I might have, is it being caused by my age, or is it being caused because of the fact that I have multiple sclerosis, which can impact you in very many ways. And those ways can change on a spot, on a dime. But speaking for myself, I can't say that I have a significant challenge in balance. As I explained a little bit earlier, I did have an incident when I was playing golf that I went to put the tee in the ground and lost of balance. I ended up doing a header. Fortunately, I'm not that tall, so my head did not have that far to fall.
Yeah.
But it's where the difficulty comes in for me is it my age? I tend to think not. Or is it the multiple sclerosis? I tend to think that plays a bigger part in it than does my age.
And yes, and after a fall, sometimes people will lose their sense of confidence if they're not clear as to why they fell. And
well, yes, and I'm, as I explained to you earlier, I'm going through some challenges now. Every so often, which sometimes is too often, I do get bouts of vertigo. Why? Beats the tar out of me. I don't know. Yeah. I'm assuming that it's related to multiple sclerosis, because vertigo is an issue for people with MS. But there's no way to prove it. Yeah. It's a mystery.
One of the things we talk about when it comes to the idea and the practice of balance is that we have two centers to be mindful of. Your sense of balance is in the inner ear, that your sense of equilibrium and balance standing upright. Then there's the center of balance. That's the center of mass. And its idea is that you want these two centers run on top of the other vertically, in the sense that for maximum support and balance. But being mindful of those two centers is really one of the things that when we lose track of that, we lose our balance and we wind up having a fall or flipping over or tripping up, so to speak. And actually, that's something we're going to actually do just a little example of right now, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Join me. And it's not, we're not going to get up, but we're going to almost get up. And so I'm going to count to three. And
when you say almost get up.
Yes, in other words, you're going to start getting, and when I'm going to count to three, and when I get to three, you're going to start the process of getting out of the chair. I'll say freeze, then we'll sit down, and we'll continue the conversation.
When you say almost get up.
Almost get up.
But you might be thinking that I'm going to get up, and then when you say it's ready, I'm going to just
fall over. No, we don't want you to fall, brother. We
Okay,
want to avoid
good.
a fall.
Just wanted to clarify that.
We want to avoid a fall. So this is one of the exercises and practices that we do in our classes and our sessions with the whole idea of working on balance. And it's really to really highlight the point that we tend to move with momentum and not through our center. So here we go, the little assignment. So sitting normally, and on the count of 3, you're going to start the process of getting up, and I'll say freeze at some point, and then we'll sit back down and continue
I'll try
the
and
journey.
freeze.
We'll freeze you, brother. I'll hold you. So on the count of 3, ready? And we'll both go together. Ready? Slowly. 1, 2, 3. And we begin. Freeze. Notice where your head is. Notice where my head is. Have a seat. And we went, and what I tell the people, think about 3 H's. H1 is your head, H2 your hips, H3 your heels. Now when we're seated in a chair, H1 and H2 are fairly in alignment. You know, the ears are above the head is above the hips. So H1 and H2 in alignment. But H3 is out in front of us. So intuitively what we do is we go from balance to imbalance. We literally are falling out of a chair to start standing up, and then we adjust and correct ourselves, and we catch ourselves as we're getting up.
And that's when you do a header.
And that's when you do a header. And we want to avoid that because one of our themes is where the head goes, the bottom follows. So if a person I knew when I was playing judo and jiu-jitsu back in the day, I knew once I had my opponent's head and shoulders tilted slightly one direction, there's this thing called gravity that's always working. And I knew that at that point in time, gravity takes over because they're out of balance, and boom, the fall happens and the throw happens. So it's not about strength, it's about balance and imbalance. And so what we want to do in this case is we tend to move our heads forward to create an imbalance of momentum going forward. And what I'm asking us to do with the Jenkins technique that we do in the Tai Chi balance class is bring your feet in. And we're going to show you 2 ways of getting out of the chair. So we're going to get our 3 H's in alignment. So right now, H1, H2 in a chair, lined up. H3 is in front of us. So bring H3 in, bring your heels in about hip width apart. So you want to keep your feet a little bit apart. And then flat on the floor, though. You want to keep them flat on the floor. Scoot your bottom forward. Yes, and keep your feet flat on the floor. Keep moving your hips forward. Keep moving your hips forward, and as far forward as you can.
That's
we're working with you, brothers. And so you can use the arms of the chair, but you're using your legs to push you up and out of the chair. And that's the idea. So you're not using your head as momentum. Let's try one more. And this one is really it's a little variation on the theme, and it's about pressing the foot, being mindful of pressing the foot fully into the floor. So in fact, I'm bringing my feet in, but I'm on the balls of my feet. And what I'm doing is using the balls of my feet, bringing my hips forward on top of the balls of my feet. And I'm being conscious of pressing my feet into the floor, and you're bringing your hips forward. Think of the hips as a floating joint. You know, in those pneumatic doors, they have the metal frame that's an elbow kind of deal. And so this little joint right here, this fulcrum point, think of the hips as that fulcrum point. You have a line here and a torso here, but this is a fulcrum point by which we want to rotate around, and that's what helps us get out of the chair. And so we'll talk about another variation on the theme of how we get out of a chair in our next segment. Welcome back to Community Wellness with John Jenkins. And of course, I have my phenomenal guest, Mr. Bob Picone. And we're going to show you one more variation on a theme, perhaps really 2 more variations on a theme of how we get out of the chair. Now, I don't know if we showed this last one, Bob, but basically having the ball of your feet in underneath your hips scoot forward, and remember the 3 H's. H1 is the head, H2 the hips, H3 the heels. And on this one, you actually are pressing your foot into the floor, using the hips as a floating joint pushing forward, but the head stays over the hips at all times. And you can use the seat of your chair or the arms of the chair, but we never put our weight or hand on the back of the chair because that would create a problem by tilting over, throwing everything out of balance. And this is all about balance. So, but think and be mindful of your weight of your ball of your foot pushing in through the whole floor, foot into the floor from the seated position. But as you do so, the head stays upright and your hips are gently pushing forward. So let's try that on the count of 3. 1, 2, and 3. We're pushing through, and you feel how that pushes you right up. And we'll try one more version on this, and that is doing it sideways. Again, H1, H2, head, hips, and H3 are the heels. But what we're going to do sideways, because some people may have to get out of a chair in a sideward fashion. We call it side saddle. So you bring your feet and your knees turn sideways. You're going to turn toward what's considered, or you could consider your strong side. So if you're right-handed, you're turning toward that right leg. If you're left-handed, you're turning toward that left leg because it's right underneath you. And when I say underneath you, remember the 3 H's, H1, H2, and H3 are the heels. So in this case, we're both turning to our right. We're going to turn to the right side, right hand. And your right hand can go on the seat of the chair itself if you need to. We don't want to put it on the side on the arm in this case because, again, a chair can be pushed over this way if you're putting too much weight on the arm. But on the seat, which is designed for us to sit in, we can put our hands on the chair in the seat itself to help us get up. But in this case, your hips are forward above your heels, H1, H2, H3. Again, pressing your weight into the foot, into the floor, and you're using your legs to push you up and out of the chair. Awesome, Bob. And now that we're up, and we're going to show this other piece, and we're going to turn and face this way, Bob. And now, think of your foot itself. Each foot is in half lengthwise. So you have the big toe, and then you have the second toe in. So from that second toe in, through the length of the foot, kind of visualize each foot in half. So therefore, you have 2 halves on the left foot, lengthwise, and you have 2 halves on the right foot, lengthwise. So when we shift our weight, now notice what we're not going to do. We're not going to tilt our head, nor just throw our hips around, no, but we're moving head over hips. Shift everything over to your left leg so your left knee slightly bends. But as you have the full weight on your left foot, you want to feel the inner half of your right foot. That anchors you. Now I'm going to hold on to you a little bit here, Bob. So if you go a little further to your left, can you feel how that weight goes to the outside of that foot? And you feel like it might throw you over, right? We don't want you to fall. So safety first.
I don't fall well.
Well, we don't want you to fall, brother. We don't want you to fall at all. Okay. So that's why we shift to the left. Now let's go back to the center and now shift the weight over to your right foot, but feel the inner half of that left foot. That's the physical limit that you want to move at so that you're not beyond your foundation. If a building gets beyond its foundation, over it goes because of this thing called gravity. And one more time back to the center, and then now shift over to your left foot, and you're going to have the inner half, feel the inner half of your right foot. You must always want to keep that contact with the ground. Anything less than that, you are getting into difficulty and balance issues become a real problem, and that we don't want. So we'll talk more about wellness and how we age as we age in our next segment. Welcome back to Community Wellness with John Jenkins, and I'm here with my fabulous guest here, Mr. Bob Picone, and he's been so gracious as to look around. He's been so gracious to actually work with us in terms of wellness and balance and talking about as we age and how we age. And Bob, you were just saying something a moment ago about the natural process, and would you just share that?
In the activity of just standing up, it's a natural activity. Mm-hmm. Now, as you age, it might be good to develop a new natural.
And that's the idea of this whole process, this whole system that we've been sharing with so many people is this is the only vehicle we have that's going to get us to this journey called life. And you want this vehicle to operate at its optimum level as long as it can. That's the simple goal in all of this. And so as we age, parts wear out, and sometimes parts wear out sooner than they need to because of how we're using them. And that's where the whole balance piece comes in. And as we age, we need to, I'm just suggesting in this work, we need to adjust how we move this vehicle most efficiently. And if we knew this as youngsters, then there's nothing new to learn. And so it's really training the body to move more efficiently, more correctly. And that's what this is really about.
I envision a picture. It's not really a picture, but a little video that when you're young, movement comes natural to you. The balance comes natural to you. As you age, it doesn't come quite as natural.
And when you're young, your reaction, your reflexes are quicker. And so therefore, when you're out of balance, you are quick to adjust and, so that you don't fall, if you will. As we age, the reaction time is a little slower, so we begin falling before we realize we are, and by the time we go to catch ourselves,
you're already down.
Well, yeah, gravity takes over, and there's momentum from that point forward. So we're really asking you to be mindful of where your center is at any given time, because we tend to move with our head first in most every endeavor, just as we did earlier in getting out of a chair. First thing we go from balance, and by instinct, because we move with the momentum, we instinctively started leaning forward, which is imbalance. And in fact, we actually split the difference between the two H's because what did we do? H1, H2, H3. When you lean forward, your head is in front, your bottom is behind you, and where's H3 is splitting the difference between the two. And so there's a little teeter-totter right there of trying to catch ourselves as we continue to stand up. So the idea is you want to make sure they're in alignment before you even begin the standing up process, so you're not pushing yourself further off balance. And I had a person in another class of mine in a wellness program we did with a hospital. And she said, "Oh my goodness, I wish you were here a few weeks ago." I said, "What happened?" And she had her arm bandaged up, and she said, "Gee, a simple thing at home, getting out of a chair," which she's done 1,000,000 times. And as she's getting out of the chair, she lost her balance, and there's a piece of furniture right nearby, very sharp corner to it. She went to put her hand out to stop herself from falling forward, and it opened her arm up, and big problem. So it's a simple thing of getting out of a chair, but you can always lose your balance because your head is so far forward, you don't catch yourself in time because gravity is always working. But as we talk more about balance in future classes and future shows, we also need to be mindful of what are some of the other challenges that you feel would be helpful for some of our audience that as we talk about as we age and how we age, what are some of the things you think we should cover as some of the topics as we go forward with this show?
Well, speaking for myself, I find it difficult to figure out is the difficulties that I'm having due to my aging or is due to my multiple sclerosis. And that's I would venture to say a riddle that I'll never be able to figure it out because the multiple sclerosis can impact me in so many different ways. But naturally I've overcome the challenge. I've never really had difficulty standing up. If I take a position on a particular issue, I might have difficulty defending that issue. a little humor.
Yes, okay, it's fine. That's okay. You stand on any issue you want, my brother. It's okay. Politically speaking, we're talking. But also, I know because MS affects everyone differently, as you mentioned before. Yeah. And I know that some of friends that I have in other classes, one of the things they do is almost like they have to stimulate their feet before they get out of bed. In other words, they get to the edge of the bed and they basically kind of almost like waking up the system, the nervous system in a sense. They start tapping their feet just to kind of pat. And it puts innervation into the feet, that little pulsing action, just a little bit, just to get the feet awakened so they're not stepping on a foot that's not fully awake and engaged, ready to support the weight of the body getting out of bed.
While I don't tap my feet, I do, especially first thing in the morning when I'm getting up, I do take my time. I don't rush it.
Big thing. Excellent.
And when you do that, I think you naturally do things in a more safe and sane way. When you rush anything, you're apt to be making mistakes.
And that happens to people more than we realize because many falls happen within the home. And what happens is your body is mechanically and directionally facing one way, and you just suddenly, oh, I got to turn quickly to do X, Y, Z. You turn quickly without turning the feet, and you wind up turning on a weighted limb. The weight gets beyond your support, your foundation, your feet, and over we go. So we actually trip over ourselves, trip over our feet, or fall off the platform of our feet. And we actually, because to your point, we turn quickly beyond what our support is, and before you know it, we're heels over head and unnecessarily. So yeah, it is that idea of slowing things down. And in fact, there's a little program we call Tai Chi Balance, where we actually are teaching certain aspects of a Tai Chi form that we show folks. There's 3 little steps. And in fact, I'm going to show that, and maybe we can demonstrate a little bit of that before we, can go on to another show. But I want to actually come back on that, and if you don't mind, if you got a few more minutes, okay, we're going to come back and show you a little bit of Tai Chi Balance form when we have our next show. Okay, welcome back to Community Wellness with John Jenkins, and I am here with my phenomenal friend Bob Picone, and we're actually going to show you just a couple little steps of the Tai Chi 1, 2, 3, the Tai Chi balance form. And so Bob, are you game for this? So what are the opening and closing postures? We call it sandy blanket. So we pretend we're shaking the sand out of a blanket. Oh, perfect. And we'll stop with that now, okay? And now here comes our little form that we work on balance and moving from position to position. So we're going to go to our left first. So left arm is on the bottom and the right hand is on top. We're going to hold the ball left side. Excellent. And our left, shift our weight so our left foot opens the door facing to our left. And here comes posture 1. We wipe off the ball. So your top hand, your right hand wipes off the ball. Perfect. Here comes posture 2. We're going to call our best friend. So your left hand says, hey, come here. And your right hand says, nah, go back. And we send them back. And from here comes posture 3. We call it Chuck Berry. And so from here, your right hand draws back to your belly button. Left arm goes long, and we're playing a guitar, left side. So your left arm is out long. There you go, brother. And we're playing a guitar left side. And we'll actually do more of this form. And then we end the way we started. And we'll do it one more time, shaking the sand out of a blanket. And I hope at home you're giving Bob a big hand because he did an awesome job. But we'll show you more of this next time we have our next show. Again, I'm John Jenkins. This is Community Wellness with John Jenkins. See you next time.